This podcast is a collaboration between Costard and Touchstone Productions and the Dads from the Crypt podcast.
You wrote that the world doesn't need a savior, but every day I hear people crying for one.
Hello and welcome to another episode in the continuing saga of how not to make a movie. I'm Alan Katz. Gil will be with us shortly. But first...
Like us. Like us. You'll be surprised how easy it is to like us once you begin.
And all you have to do is push the like button on our website, on our YouTube channel. Even better, subscribe. That way you can stay informed of all the very cool things that Gil and I are working on beyond this podcast.
From the crypt.
Working with iconic characters is a very special creative challenge. It can come with a lot of responsibilities too, especially if the character you're working on is as iconic and as multi-generationally beloved as Superman.
Up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane!
It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman.
There's a reason people keep making and remaking the same superhero movies. Audiences won't let the characters go. That's the good news. Get a superhero movie right from casting to execution, back up the whole fleet of Brinks trucks. But if you get any part of the superhero wrong, especially casting, you'll kill the whole franchise dead. And dead superheroes, that's not good for a studio's bottom line. With a Batman, there's a lot of latitude. He's an odd, dark character to begin with. You can cast Adam West, or Michael Keaton, or George Clooney, or Christian Bale, or Robert Pattinson. That's because you can play Batman as ironic, or earnest, or emotionally tormented. It all works. Superman, entirely different. He epitomizes the straight and narrow. He's a Boy Scout's Boy Scout, instantly and incredibly likable, selfless, sensitive, virile without being an alpha dog about it. Whereas Batman's outfit is a costume that he puts on, Superman's costume is Clark Kent. The character isn't Clark pretending to be Superman, he's Superman pretending to be Clark Kent. So you're not casting Clark, you're casting Superman. That makes casting really tricky because, as I've said here a few times, in film and TV, we really don't hire actors to act. We hire them to be who they are, as honestly as they can. If they act, the camera's going to see it, and it'll all end up on the cutting room floor. That's why the best film actors are the ones who excel at being emotionally honest, at being who they are, on cue, for however many takes it takes. In the case of Superman, that means you have to hire someone who's a lot like Superman, frankly. If he tries to act like Superman, it just won't work. Guys like Brandon Routh really don't act the part of Superman. In a lot of surprising ways, they are it. So the answer to the question of how do you cast Superman is, you find someone Superman, you find someone like Brandon.
Usually, if it's a story that's my own, I am not a great storyteller of my own stories in the past.
You've started off the conversation with an interesting, okay, let's go off to the side. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, why do you suppose that
I'm
is?
all about the side.
Yeah. Hey, I'm happy to go down an interesting pathway.
I don't want to stop your thought, but does my hair look crazy? I can put on I have a beanie.
You look great.
It's so long I need to get it cut. I don't even know what to do. Okay.
I stopped dealing with hair a long time ago. So
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm the worst person to ask.
Yeah, you look, Brandon, you look great. But then again, this is coming from two guys who much hair like.
I didn't realize that.
You're asking the wrong room, man.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Why do you think it is you have problems telling your own stories?
This is a lovely question at 11:11. I think it's because, it's multifactorial, many things are, but I think one reason is because I've told myself internally and unconsciously, people don't care and they don't want to hear it. So that kind of thing.
You know, that's a very, it's so interesting that you say
So
that.
self-defeatist. So I'm defeating myself
Yeah.
before I'm telling it. I'm like excusing myself before I'm telling the story. Like, yeah, you don't want to hear this.
All right. I'm glad I asked that question, and I'm glad you gave that answer, because as I was doing my research just to get to know you before we had this conversation, I watched a couple of.
You talk to my therapist?
Well, you know, I didn't not talk, but there was some texting back and forth. But you know, it was off the record, of course. But I watched a couple of interviews you did with Michael Rosen.
Oh yeah.
My biggest takeaway was that you and I have very similar stories.
Huh?
In that we were both on a particular career trajectory.
Yeah.
That suddenly veered wildly off course. And for you, it was Superman Returns and what happened afterwards. For me, it was the movie that Gil and I did called Bordello of Blood. And, you know, really in the aftermath of Bordello and Blood, my career went a whole other direction. It just kind of crashed and burned for the better part of 2 decades. You did much better.
Sorry.
You did far better than I did. But really, there's that suddenly finding yourself in a wilderness you did not expect yourself to be in. And it's very disconcerting. And like I said, I suddenly felt such a
kinship.
Yes.
Connection. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I thought from I understand something about you from the get-go. And like I said, it makes talking about it really, I'm not asking you questions as an outsider. I'm comparing notes with you. Let's start with life before Superman.
Oh yeah.
You 3 or 4 children. You grew up in Iowa. You're a distant relative of President Franklin Roosevelt.
I think the internet said that.
Yeah.
I've never heard news to me.
Because all right, if this is
other than somebody else quoting Wikipedia or something.
Who the hell wrote your Wikipedia entry? Now, really, this is as much a part of our public relations as anything else, because it's self-writing. If you didn't put that there, who the fuck did?
I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea. And that's not that far back. So I think I would like my family would know if we were. So, I mean, if we are, it's like, so are you guys? Did you know? We're all related to each other because we all live on Earth and we're all human beings.
Well, indeed. You've never done 23andMe?
Well, yeah, but it doesn't say that. I've not gotten any.
You would think that would be something, because it's not too distantly related. Wow. Wikipedia.
Somebody way back, like a ruler, or a French guy, or somebody, like 900, 1100 AD. There's some mention in my 23andMe. One thing that I know with some certainty or some interest or confirmation is that the name Routh is by a gentleman who's in Texas. There's a lot of Rouths in Texas, I guess. A gentleman like 30 years ago did a whole like genealogy thing and traced the name Routh all the way back to the town of Routh in England, and kind of like out near Manchester, near
Wrexham.
Yes, William the Conqueror came over with the Normans. He was a Norman.
You did when you studied about him. They didn't say Uncle Willie to you, did they?
No, Uncle Willie. No,
it wasn't Uncle Willie.
Because it wasn't Uncle Willie. Uncle
Guillaume.
Adopted like extra bonus uncle. William the Conqueror came over.
Are the Rouths are the Rouths in the Domesday Book?
Who?
In the Domesday Book, after William the Conqueror conquered England, he took stock of everything that was there. And he created a thing called the Domesday Book. And that was really taking stock of everyone and everything that was in England. And you might be able to.
I don't know. That's very interesting. I'm not aware of that. And when they conquered this part of England, he gave land to Sir something, Sir Bedivere, one of the Knights of the Round Table. No, Sir, I think it was an R, so a name, one of his right-hand men, and it was the town of Ralph. It was already there. It's for like hard earth or hard dirt or something. Is Ralph something? Is the definition, I guess. And the people then, his land adopted the name Ralph.
I got you. I got you. Okay, I got you.
So that's where Ralph. I don't know if people were called Ralph there, or that he married into and extended the Ralph line. This commander.
But that's really cool. So probably, yeah, if it comes from a town, it's in the Domesday Book.
Yeah,
I love history. So right off the bat, that just stuff like that blows me away. You know, when we were shooting Crypt the last season in England, you know, we got to work in set mode, in locations we could only have dreamed of before. You know, we shot one episode in a place called Dorney Court, which is owned by the man whose relative built it 600 years ago.
Wow.
It was so cold. I can't imagine it was like 600 years ago. This was with heat.
Oh, yeah.
And cold and damp. It was awful.
Oh.
But a great location. I mean, it looks so cool. But I don't know. I find the fact that you can trace yourself back to this place. That's very cool. You know?
Someday I'm going to go. Someday I'm going to go to the town of Ralph. Someday soon, I'm going to go and check it out. There's a Church of Ralph.
The FDR connection is bullshit. How about the Jason Momoa?
It took us somewhere, though. It took us somewhere. The FDR did take us somewhere.
Yeah. Well, hey, you know, we wandered. We found our way back.
Right.
All right. So the FDR connection is bullshit. How about the Jason Momoa connection?
Yes, I am related to Jason Momoa. He is my half-brother.
Thank goodness.
The world should know. Half brothers on my dad's side.
That's so interesting.
So
how did you do that?
Wait, on my mom. Did I do that joke? Okay. There was a joke somewhere. I don't know if I couldn't do all the calculations as I was speaking, but there's a funny there somewhere. Jason is from the same town that I'm from in Norwalk, Iowa. That is true. That is true. We did grow up in the same town together, playing soccer for years and years and years on the same high school, team as well. And what was in the water that it produced two guys who ended up making superhero movies? Holy shit! Two completely opposite guys.
Yeah. I mean, you don't look the same.
No, we don't look the same, and we're not the same. I mean, we're not the same. We're not the same person.
No. Wouldn't cast you the same.
No, you wouldn't cast the same. I don't know. I don't. Yeah, it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting thing. I don't know if there's a case study of this anywhere else because the population of Norwalk was 6,000 or 7,000 when I was growing up. Okay, I graduated a class of 156 kids, and Jason was a year ahead of me in school, but he's only a couple years older than I am. I wonder if anybody. Here's the question. I don't know if I wonder if anybody asks him, "Hey, friend Ralph." He's become such a household name. It's astonishing. It's amazing. Jokes about him all the time on just TV shows like Non Sequiturs, the Jason Momoa joke. We weren't friends in high school. I didn't have any friends for one, and I don't know if he had any either because he was one kid looking like Jason Momoa in a town where everyone looked like me, and in a state where everyone looked like me. So he had it rough and nobody understood what he was really going through. So we unfortunately didn't connect at that time until we were adults. And now we have, and
it's funny. I was going to ask you, why is it you didn't have any friends? You said you were, although you were a theater kid.
Yeah.
So you had friends in the theater.
I had friends in school.
Yeah.
I was social.
Yeah.
Goodness, I was social and had friends. At school, I had outside of school, I had no friends.
Would you describe yourself as awkward?
To this day. I mean,
This
yeah,
is
yeah,
and this is why you don't think you have a story to tell, which is
Yeah.
not the truth at all. But
yeah.
the whole reason we're having this conversation is because you have a terrific story to tell.
Yes, I was awkward. It was not to go into a whole bunch of my childhood, but I was I mean, you can't really write it any better or give a better comparison than to say I was Clark Kent. I mean, I very much like that character. Goody two shoes, which caught up with me when I was in 7th, 8th grade, as kids were experimenting and doing things that the parents wouldn't be happy about and they might get in trouble for. I think naturally people realized like I was going to be a buzzkill and maybe
you were that kid.
Tell on everybody because I was the kid. I was the kid at the Boy Scout birthday party. It was a party for one of our Boy Scouts in a troop, and we're having fun. And we go in and we're evening time. I think we're like 10, 11 years old.
And you said you were a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
A literal Boy Scout.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was on my way to be.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yes, I was a Boy Scout.
Okay.
And I was not a great Boy Scout, but and we got sleeping bags. And we're watching the movie. We go to after the good party that we had, friends party, all the guys, and the movie is Top Gun. And right? Yes, that was the movie. And it's PG-13. But I'm 10 or 11. So I'm under my covers because I'm not supposed to be watching the PG-13 movie.
Oh, I knew kids like you. Oh man, I absolutely I know who you were. Oh my God, I know who you were.
One more story about that. It's because it's movies. It's movies. Around the same age, I must have been younger, I think, because Back to the Future came out much earlier than I remember in theaters. It's like out in 87 or something. So this memory, I thought I was older in this memory. So it must have been, if it was 87, I must have been, maybe I was 8. At most I was 8. So I was 7 or 8, I guess. And we were going to the movies and my sister, who was 2 years older, so she was 9 or 10, she's still not old enough. Man, went with my older brother, who's 11 years older, to see Back to the Future. They were seeing Back to the Future. I didn't get to see Back to the Future because Back to the Future was rated PG-13. So guess which movie I saw? Anybody else remember what movie was playing when Back to the Future came out? The movie I saw with, I think, my parents was Cocoon.
Oh boy. Well,
and
okay.
Cocoon gave me nightmares from the pods opening for years. I was like, gee, Mom, Dad, save me.
But as you know yourself, Brandon, parenting is so hard.
Oh, yeah. I love my parents.
It's so hard to get it right.
I wouldn't be telling this fun story.
Indeed. Well, as we also all learn, our children are our parents' revenge upon us.
Yeah.
In particular ways, it's the payback we had coming to us. I know my son especially was. Oh, he argues the way that I argued. Oh boy. Yeah. And he's 24 now. He's really good. He's really good.
You can be proud of yourself then.
Well, thank you. And it sounds like you are filling the role as a very dedicated parent too. We'll get there. parenting is a very important part of the human experience.
Absolutely.
I would say that parenting made me a better writer, without a doubt. Holy shit, not even close. Oh my God. Yeah. I learned so much being a parent that I did not know before about human beings.
The depth of humanity and caring, and it's the one way to really get you out of yourself, you know, more than just a significant other, because it's not the same as and it doesn't have to, I don't know that it has to be your child. I mean, you know, because we have these situations, but it's that thing that you are so invested it's a true connection. It's a true, like, heart and soul connection to an individual that you don't find. It's hard to create that or allow that with other people, with children and with people that you care for in that way, that you are the caregiver for. It's easier.
Nothing reveals your vulnerabilities in this world than having a child in your hands, holding them and suddenly realizing how vulnerable and yet how important this thing is. You feel so connected to everything. And not everyone has the same takeaways from this experience, alas, but you know, hopefully, fortunately, enough of us do that, you know, we will hopefully get through this patch in time and remember how bonded we all really are. But there's our sermon for now. Where'd you go to college?
I'm a proud Hawkeye. As an English major, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write fantasy novels, basically. Was what was my career path. And then I was going to go into graphic design to pay the bills until I wrote my first blockbuster novel. Then maybe someday adapt it into screenplay, and maybe I'd become an actor. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, you know, that's what people do, right?
But your whole approach was really practical.
I've always strongly felt like I don't always know where it's going.
But you always felt like
leading me more than I'm leading it. But
something out there that you had to head toward, whatever the fuck it was, wherever the fuck it was. I mean, you dropped out of college after 1 year and you went to.
It's hard. I moved to Downey, California.
The point of the point of the exercise in moving from Iowa to Downey, which is not far from Los Angeles, was
to, you know, pursue acting. My great aunt and uncle, Dan and Sue Brown, were there on my mom's side and took good care of me when my kind of grandparents / you know, for a while, because they were my second great aunt, great uncle. Yeah, so second. They were my grandparents' age. I went out to try it out for 3 months was the idea.
Why 3 months?
I think 3 months because the idea was then maybe I was going to go to New York and try modeling. I was in Iowa. Spring break happened on my freshman year. I went to a local modeling talent agency called Avant in Des Moines. That led to, hey, why didn't you go to this big thing called IMTA in New York, where people go and they meet agents and managers from acting and modeling. Long story short, I did that. That's where I met my first manager, and modeling agent and manager. Manager suggested I come out to LA, and then I did for 3 months. Went to New York for a couple weeks to try modeling. I didn't like that. Never wanted to do that really anyway, just to make some money, and I never did really. And then I went back to. I decided pretty early on into that 3 months I was going to stay in LA, because I booked my first gig in like a month of being out there.
What was the first thing you booked?
It was a TGI Friday show. You know, it used to be on ABC. It was a show called Odd Man Out. Marky Post was the mom.
1 month. 1 month in, and you scored that?
I think it was 1 month in. Yeah. I said 5 words. I'm at the end of the show. It's a sitcom, right? I don't know if it's live studio. My first job's a live studio audience. Like that's probably the worst for most people. It's probably the worst first like acting gig you could have. But my only experience really in acting had been on stage. In doing comedy, the first play I ever did was Hide and Shriek, and it was just like a farce of Aesop's fables kind of. And I played like a hillbilly with a terrible southern accent and a hat on the head, but I loved it. It was amazing, and hearing the roar of the crowd, that's the first spark of anything for me. But I loved the sitcom. I did it. I thrived, and I thought I was behind the stage, like after the show or as we're filming the show, going, "This is it. Like, I'm doing this. I'm sold. I'm not going back to Iowa."
There's nothing quite like learning that you can make people laugh in a live environment. That is super intoxicating. That suddenly gets into your head, and then you begin scheming. Suddenly along comes Superman. There's a great scene in Kill Bill 2 where Bill, just before the final duel with Beatrice Kiddo, he talks about his theory about superheroes. He said Batman is actually Bruce Wayne. Spider-Man is actually Peter Parker. When that character wakes up in the morning,
he's Peter Parker. He has to put on a costume to become Spider-Man. And it is in that characteristic Superman stands alone. Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. When Superman wakes up in the morning, he's Superman.
And what are the characteristics of Clark Kent? He's weak, he's unsure of himself, he's a coward.
Clark Kent is Superman's critique on the whole human race.
Quentin has thought long and hard about some things that a lot of us don't think long and hard about. What do you disagree with?
The last part, his critique that it's
that Clark Kent is Superman's critique of the whole human race. That was Bill just ranting and raving before Beatrice kills him.
But the first part is, I was going to say I can't remember the words. They were great words that he wrote. What was the first part that
he says
about Superman? This part
Superman didn't become Superman. Superman was born Superman. When he wakes up in the morning, he's Superman. His alter ego is Clark.
Yeah, I would say my response to that is well, I don't get too big with things, but that's all our story. That's everyone's story.
But it's the universality that really gives it. Why the fuck do we keep coming back to this character?
Because he's one person who in a way is saying it's so. For me, what Superman is, he's an alien. Came from another place. He's a human. He is the same emotional, whatever. All that structure is the same as us, right? So he's just able to sit in his own skin because he has powers that show that. He has these powers that show that his inner, that he has a great power, so he can have great power internally also, and it's okay to share that inner fortitude or compassion or empathy and all of the things, the wisdom that he has, because he can justify it with his physicality somehow. Yeah, we don't as human.
You're absolutely so. He's invincible, but not emotionally.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He is vulnerable emotionally.
Yes.
And that's, in spite of all the superpower, he's still, yes, there's kryptonite, but there's also that attachment to other living creatures.
Yeah.
I think that's really what made our movie so different than any other movie about Superman before or since.
What I wanted to bring to it, from all of my thinking and meditating at the time about Superman and what he was to me and to the world, rather than just a comic book hero.
Before they dragged you into this, Brandon, Warner Brothers spent over a decade in developing a plan to relaunch this incredibly valuable franchise. you know, I keep asking the question, why do we keep coming back to the same 3 or 4 superheroes? And it is because it's hard to beat them. They seem to encompass so much.
The archetype is strong.
Yeah, the Superman, Spider-Man, you know, the Peter Parker Spider-Man dynamic. Now, you know, I confess I'm not a superhero aficionado. But I appreciate, wow, how those universes were put together, and suddenly you have a Marvel verse and a DC verse, and it's been great for a lot of creative people that these worlds were able to expand. Warner Brothers, you know, certainly, you know, they were trying to recapture something of Dick Donner's Superman. That, you know, they wanted to forget about, what was it Superman 3 that they wanted to forget about, or 4? I forget which one.
I mean, both, but mostly 3 more than 4. I don't know. I don't know.
At what point
the latter ones, yeah.
At what point did you join the process, Gil, in making Superman Returns?
Oh, pretty early on in that 10-year history.
Okay.
I was involved with Superman for about 4 years, I think.
Before shooting started.
Oh yeah, we had 1, 2. I think I had 3 or 4 directors.
What was that process like? Warner Brothers was
insane. I mean, I was finishing up Constantine, and while I was finishing up, I was on the set on the lot at Warner Brothers. I got notice saying, you need to go right away to see Alan Horn, who was the chairman of Warner Brothers. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, they're going to fire me. They're gonna just drop me. Why would they fire me? I only got 3 more weeks on Constantine. So I leave the set immediately. I go up to Alan Horn's office, and I'm like, you know, I go, Alan,
what'd I do?
You know, what am I doing here? And he goes, sit down. And he sits there and he goes, so listen, I think Robinoff was there as well. I think by then Lorenzo had left, and Robinoff might have been, or it might have been Lorenzo. And they look at me and they go, so we want to talk to you about your next movie. And I'm like, so you don't want to fire me? And they look at me and they go, fire you? Are you out of your mind? So I said, well, what's the next movie? And they have a script, and they turn it around and they push it to me on the other side of the table. And on it says Flyby. And I go, what's Flyby? And they go, you know, Flyby. And I go, no, I don't know Flyby. What's Flyby? And they go, Superman. And I go, Superman? Are you crazy? I'm not doing that. And I push the script back to them. And I go, you've been trying to make this for 7 years. This is what's going to happen. You're going to waste a year of my life. You're going to pay me well. At the end of the year, I'm going to be so pissed off because I didn't do anything. So I don't want to do this. I'm not doing it. And I left. I went back to the set. So the next day, I get a phone call, come back up to see Alan Horn. So we go up there, and he goes, how can we work this out so that it makes sense for you to do this? We really want, you know, you're the guy to do this with us, blah, blah, blah. And I go, I don't know. I mean, I can't ask you to have final say in any of this because it's, you know, your money, your studio, your property. But how do I get to the point where I'm not going to be upset when you say we're not making the movie because of whatever reason, the script, the actor, the location, whatever. And so we spent weeks talking about that and trying to figure out why and how I would feel comfortable doing that. And we sort of came up to a semi thing, but I knew ultimately they could stop the picture, you know, and they should be able to stop the picture. It's their property, their money. But we made it so that, well, if we had a script that did this and we had a budget that did that, then it really, I was narrowing out the elements that they could say no to. And finally, I agreed to do it. When I came on, there was one director, and then he left, and another director.
Who was the director when you started?
Brett Ratner.
Right.
He was on for about a week while I was on, and then I walked in one day and I said, "Where's Brad? I want to talk to him." And they say he's not here, and I go, "Oh, okay. Well, when he gets in, have him come into my office." And they said, "No, he's not coming back." And I went, "Where'd he go?" I knew nothing. So then that, and I thought, okay, that's the end of that. I'm leaving. And then they said, no, we got somebody else. And then it was McGee. And McGee and I worked a year on the project. And then one day he said to me, I can't get on a plane. It was always going to be in Australia. He goes, I can't get on a plane. I go, what do you mean you can't get on a plane? Anyway, we went through that. That's a whole other story. I don't want to impose on Brandon's time.
You auditioned for McGee at first.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yes. The road to get to that audition is a very interesting story, but I could spend a long time talking about that.
It's up to you. If you want to tell it, tell it. We'll go there with you.
Okay. My path to be in the position that we are in right now, speaking about this thing in my life, is just fascinating to me as I've gone back and looked at the connections and the steps and all of the things, and because I'm very curious about how I am where I am often. And
here.
And so fast forward to my college experience and going to IMTA, meeting my first manager at this, big cattle call, like thousands of people there. Oh, like 2% of them are actually going to get signed with somebody and become, do anything with it. 5.5% actually make any money be me.
You were one of them.
I was one of them, and there are a couple other people, other people still working. My first manager, my first meeting was with a gentleman, a lovely gentleman, Jeff Maroney, and he had a management company with Beverly Strong, and said, I was at a meeting with him, and he was like, so I think you got a great look, and you're a little green. And I was like, huh? And then I found out what that meant. But you got a good look, and has anybody ever told you that you look like Christopher Reeve? And I was like, no. Well, you do, and I'm a big fan. And if there's ever a Superman movie or film, we're definitely going to get you in on that, because you'd probably have a good shot at that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And that was the first time I've ever had that I recall anybody mentioning that to me. So then fast forward to 2000.
What was all right? So, but someone says this thing to you, and you know what this franchise is. You know what that is. You had seen Christopher Reeve's work in Superman. Does this connect in any way in your head? Is this beyond fantastical? Does any part of you go, you know what?
Well, it does, because I'm from Iowa, because I am rather like Clark Kent, and have been, certainly was at that time in my life more even. It all made sense, and it's comedy, and I love that movie, and I have fond memories of watching that movie, but also throwing up, because I was so excited from jumping around, assuming before it came on TV, that I gave myself a migraine headache or whatever. I had a migraine headache. Who knows if I gave it to whatever. I had a migraine headache and was throwing up, laying on the couch with a metal bowl below me, throwing up through most of the movie. And that was my first Superman experience. But I had my pajamas. My mom still has my Superman pajamas, a little cape. That's my first Superman memory and experience.
It touched you.
I don't know. I mean, yes, obviously it did, but I don't know the thoughts leading up to a 5-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid being excited to watch Superman. I remember literally jumping on. My brain says a couple jumps on the couch and this, and then stick and throwing up.
Yeah. But good enough. So you weren't up to the wire work at that point.
No, not yet. I also had a dream, probably around the same age. I don't know, from 6 to 8. It feels like age 6 to 9. I don't know. I had a dream that I was flying in a big metropolitan city. I was flying as a kid. I was, whatever age I was at the time, flying, and like this. And around me, also flying, were koalas that were wearing capes. And the movie was filmed in Australia.
Wow.
What is that? What is that? I have no idea. So putting a couple of those factors into, and my general naivete and glass half full attitude, went out to Los Angeles thinking, yeah, sure, it might happen. It could be Superman someday. Why not? Who better than I?
And Bryan Singer gets the gig. He comes aboard as the director of Superman Returns, and he had seen your audition for McG.
Yes. So, and that whole thing, which I will tell much more concisely, I can't. That's a whole nother podcast about this whole weirdness. I was working at Lucky Strike as a bartender. I just gotten a job there, and I dressed up for a Halloween costume because I needed to make money because I was working Halloween night, and there was like $100 prize, $100 prize for employee that dressed. And this Superman thing is kind of built for me a little bit, like it'd been like a And so I dressed up as the picture that's kind of a famous picture, or was back in the day, of me, a Superman shirt with a suit over it, and I put a little wire in my tire and made it go back this way, and I got glasses, Clark, and I was Clark turning into
Yeah.
And I won the $100. It was huge. And my friend Terrence took a picture, or had a picture taken, and then he put it on his like Facebook or MySpace or whatever, Friendster or whatever it was back in the day, and that's a picture that people took and used. That was October of 2003. Prior to that meeting, I ended up at a birthday party with a woman who was the assistant to J.J. Abrams. Okay, I didn't know this at the time. I'm having a conversation with her. She's like, "Oh, Daniel, you look a lot like Superman. Has everybody ever told you that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, my manager." And I was, "Oh well, my boss is writing the next Superman movie." And I was like, "Oh really?" It's like, "Yeah, and you'd be great for it." I was like, "Really?" Well, no, I thought they were doing the Nick Cage thing. Like, I'm too old for that. She's like, no, they're doing a whole nother thing. He's younger and all this stuff. And I was like, "Oh wow," my brain is just like on fire. I'm just like, if you're giving me your headshot, maybe I can give it to him. My boss, he's just the writer. He doesn't, I don't have any power necessarily, but maybe he can get it to the producer, John Peters. It's like, okay. So the next day or 2 days later, I drive into ABC. I hadn't really been there much before. Driving on a lot, she got me a pass, and I walk into the Alias offices, and I find her, and I give her my headshot, and okay, thanks. And then I was like, "Oh, this is crazy," and I leave. And I said, "Well, who knows what that is?" I have a memory that John actually came to Lucky Strike, but now I don't know if that's real. I have a dream that John came with him and himself and an assistant.
John Peters, the producer of the movie.
At some point, yeah. At some point, I don't know when. I don't know if that's. I remember. Anyway, so that was October. I don't think anything happened in there. Then January comes around. Pilot season, busy. I get an audition for this show for CW called The Mountain. On it, I see that McG is a producer. McG's directing Superman Returns, or a flyby at the time. And I go, "Oh, huh. I bet if I get a call back, he'll see me in the callback, and he'll be like, 'You should be Superman.'" So I worked really hard on the audition. It was for a character with edgy guy, like a cocky guy. I don't do that well, especially then. I had no edge, didn't know how to do that. I had a fine audition though, and they brought me back for a callback. I'm like, he might be there. He might be there. He wasn't there. But who? But
So close, so far.
But his producing partner, Stephanie Savage, was there. So I didn't know who Stephanie was, but we're talking, and then casting director stepped out of the room for a little bit, and we're talking, and she's getting a coffee, and she went to University of Iowa. and she was also an ice skater or something. We talked about ice skating. I like work bonding about University of Iowa, and I'm just kind of like gently like charming, but I'm not saying anything about Superman, but I'm just showing all these qualities, I guess, I think, in my, who else? I was 23, 4, I don't know, out of my mind. And then I left. And my manager calls me like a week later, and he's like, I had some good news and bad news. And I was like, what do you want first? And I was like, I guess the bad news. She's like, well, you might want to pull over. I was like, okay, well, the bad news is that you didn't get the job. And I was bummed because they thought maybe they could write a different part for me because I just wouldn't fit the mold of character I needed. But it didn't work out, and I needed a job. But the good news is they want, McG wants to meet with you. They're setting up a meeting for you to meet with McG. So I literally created my own meeting. I mean, I did. Would I have seen him otherwise? I don't know. Through the natural casting process, possibly, but with very different energy. I would have been coming in. So then I had a meeting with him about 30 minutes. We talked nothing about Superman. I left. I'd met John there. I think he was in the office. I might have met you too, Gil, but I didn't know your name. And right. I knew John because the assistant had talked about John. And then I later came back and read with the casting directors, and then read a callback with McG, and then a screen test, and that's where I met Gil at the screen test, and then I didn't get the job, and nobody got the job, and then I was destroyed. My life went no. I was like, oh man, I was this close to the sun, and I burned up before I got there, and then Friday, the 13th of August 2004 rolled around, and everything changed.
Bryan Singer, he had insisted on an unknown actor in the tradition of the way they cast Christopher Reeve. He said that you were the embodiment of our collective memory of Superman. And he especially liked your humble Midwestern roots. So yeah, all that stuff absolutely worked for you.
Big statement, isn't it?
Interestingly, where you grew up was about 100 miles away from the hometown of the original TV Superman.
Yes.
Did we forget to mention that? That's also
we didn't meet. I mentioned George Reeve.
Yeah, George Reeve grew up in
Wilcott.
Yeah. There's all kinds of strange Superman stuff around you. It's really freaky. Finally, you get the gig.
Yes, I was in Gil's office when I finally got the official word. Yeah.
You're going to be doing this in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you shot this in Australia for, what was it, 9 months?
I think so. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Very long time.
Now, when Gil and I shot the last season of Crypt, we moved to London for 6 months, and it was great in ways. It was frustrating and maddening in other ways. Adjusting to the culture. Well, we're both married to Brits, so it was a little bit easier.
Interesting.
But there's still to go and move someplace far, far away for a length of time. Yeah. Yes, there's your work day, but there's also, okay, now it's quitting time. Now what are you going to do? What was the experience like working in Australia? Because had you traveled outside the country before that?
That was my first.
Right.
First international travel? Was that my first international? I think that was my first international travel. I lived in New York. I was on a soap opera and lived in New York, so I'd been.
That's kind of international in a way.
I mean, it's thankfully I went to New York before I went to LA. Actually, ever. But I know, yeah. I think that was my first international. I think I had to get my passport for that.
Yeah. So right off the bat, this is man, it's a brave new world. It is stranger and
it was amazing. It was amazing. Land. I loved it. It was just. I'm so happy that we were in Australia because it would have been a different story for me if we were in Los Angeles.
In Sydney. Isn't that where you shot most of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never been there. What's Sydney like?
The sun is different, you know?
How so?
I definitely sense differences in the sun and the sky and angle of light and light quality.
Totally right. I mean, one of the reasons why we decided to go to Australia way back,
Yeah.
because of that, because of the light. It's a very different light down there. It seems like it's more intense. It seems more pure.
Yeah.
And it seems more clear.
The image is like bigger.
Yeah.
Is expansive. You know, we were in Sydney, which is on the coast, and maybe also because there's not a lot of, I mean, there's a downtown area, but it's a smaller footprint of height of buildings, and so there's more sky there in a lot of places, I guess, and it's just more alive, and it's alive in a different way. I don't know. Listen, I also have fond memories. You know, when you think about places, you know, that you go back to, we had such a great time, and I don't know if going back it'd be exactly the same experience. Also, it was peak time in my life. You know, so much energy around that experience that it was incredibly stressful, but I was also very alive. That doesn't mean I was very present, but I was very alive in that time in like a different way. I absolutely loved it, and the people were great, and the food was amazing, and definitely ate too much of that. But
what particular foods surprised you?
This whole funny, silly thing about coffee. I almost had most silly. I was like getting a coffee was almost my kryptonite the first couple of weeks in Australia. Literally, almost brought me to my knees, because I felt like such a stupid like American now looking back. But this was 2004, and we went over there, and I hadn't drink. I was 20. I was 24. I'd started to drink coffee, but I wasn't an avid coffee drinker. I just get a coffee, you know. And so I go in and say, "Can I have a coffee, please?" And I show white. What? I just want a coffee. Okay, but what? It's like, no, just a coffee. But what kind of? But do you want like a purple coffee, or do you want like a cube coffee? And I'm like, I just want coffee. But they're saying like, what, cheese coffee, or like Empire State Building coffee? And like, just coffee, drip coffee. And I don't know how many things I went into just being frustrated, because in that mode and that time I was just like frustrated and I didn't know how to figure out the answers. I didn't know how to like calm myself and go, wait, there's got to be a solution. I was like, why is the world crazy? Why am I the right one? And the world is crazy. And now I realized, oh, maybe I could just like ask somebody calmly, like, oh, it's so interesting. I keep asking for this thing. It's like this thing. Finally, I did that to a friend or enough people. I don't know who it was, because I was there with my cousin Kevin, and he didn't drink a lot of coffee either, so he was no help. He drank tea. And so anyway, finally I figured it out. It's an Americano. And I was like, oh, there's a word for it. It's an Americano. And then I was no longer defeated by coffee in Australia.
You're right, though. It's a whole other world in terms of coffee down there. They've got the best coffee in the world, I think. But you have to know what you're asking.
What is it? What is a short or what? What are they doing to it?
Cappuccino latte. It's like how much foam? It's like long white, how much white, short white milk. That's the milk, and like it's just
a flat white or a long black.
Oh, there you go. Flat white, long.
I'm with you, Brandon. Just give me a goddamn coffee, please.
Yeah.
Got all the fucking frou-frou.
I had a similar problem with coffee, the coffee culture, when I first went down there to look at locations for a movie before I made Superman. I made a movie called Ghost Ship, and I went down there, and they said to me, if you want just a black coffee, ask for a long black. So I'm alone. All the people that I was working with, and I was flying back to the States the next day, and so I had dinner myself. I go into this restaurant, and he said, after dinner, you want something to drink? And I said, yeah, figuring I would be really smart and sharp and let him know I knew the culture. I said, I would like a tall black.
Yeah.
And the waiter came over to me and he said, I bet you would, but this isn't the place for that. I can And I realized, whoops,
No.
I wasn't asking for a coffee.
Yikes. Production was production.
No problems. It was flawless, Gil, wasn't it? It was like the most cleanly run, no stress in the whole production. And the story. There's really not. We shouldn't. I mean, with the interview's over. I think
Well, there you go. It was a one of a kind movie.
Wrap it up.
What was the worst problem you faced making it while you were making it, Gil?
Let's see. I don't think the podcast is long enough for me to go into it. We had a lot of problems.
It's a great looking movie.
Yeah, it was shot really well. Everything about the movie itself, I think, came out well and came out good. I'm very proud of that movie. I think everything about it, I really like a lot. It was just a very difficult and very challenging experience to make the picture. I mean, consider we had 5 different units shooting at any given time. And, so I was constantly trying to figure out, okay, when do we get Brandon onto this set, or when do we get Brandon onto that set? And always talking to the ADs about, the most efficient way of using not only his time, but our time and our money. So it was a big production. It was a huge production.
What was the most challenging scene to create? Because the opening on the airplane that's a great sequence.
Yeah, I mean, that took a long time. We spent probably
do it twice, kind of.
Yeah, and we did 6 months in previs. We previs the hell out of it. We built in Tamworth, which is an 1.5-hour flight away from Sydney. We built the farm, and we grew the corn, and we decided to shoot the corn when the corn was the right height. I mean, it was just very, very challenging. We built the Daily Planet on a stage, and we overlit it, which caused terrible problems because of heat. Which gave us more problems because I had to get more air conditioning, which caused more problems because we didn't have the electrical capability for the additional air conditioning. So
you couldn't just turn down the lights?
No.
How do you? Oh, what a weird.
No.
They could only be set to 11.
So we had, I mean, problem after problem after problem, which you don't even think about or realize until you start talking about it and going, oh, wait a second, that was a problem. This wasn't, this was an issue. This wasn't. So yeah, there were a lot of problems with it.
Had to keep pulling me out of the bars, and keep all my bar fights under wraps, and
Having cast a lot of actors, I can tell you, I've never cast an actor to act. You just want actors to be who they are as honestly as they possibly can. And really and truly, that you got cast in Superman as Superman was perfect casting. Really, you were it, even in the way that you grew up. There was a lot of that, and as I think we've discovered, there's a lot of that internal conflict. The Clark and Superman have a conflict, and you're incredibly you're a terrific storyteller, and yet you insist you aren't. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, I have my moments. Thank you. When you have to be invested in the story. Sometimes if you're not, then it falls apart. I haven't always been able to. Thank you. When you got to the end of this whole process of Superman Returns, and I'll a small confession, I didn't see the movie until very, very recently, just before we did this interview, because because at the time, no, it's amazing. That's great. I love it.
Well, at the time it came out, I was not I was watching certain movies.
Yeah.
But now that I've seen it, I'm so impressed with everybody's work. It's a little too long, but I think everybody knows that. I'm not giving away any family secrets. I don't think, but it really, you know, the mission was to take it back to Dick and Christopher, and you did. It's remarkably how faithful it was to the stated purpose.
Yeah. Well, thanks, and it's a supreme credit to Gil for championing parenting this, you know, and being the parent for thousands of people. Really keeping everybody in line. You know, you're phenomenal, Gil, at what you do, and it's not just logic and logistics and this, and I know how to do this. It's the way you are with people, and it means so much in this business, in life, and I just want to honor you in that way. You certainly made the difference for me. It would have been a very, very big difference. I mean, if somebody didn't have you in my corner, helping to protect me and to make sure that I was as safe as I could be, from just the pressure of this thing, which I was so naive. I really had no concept of, I guess,
Yeah.
to the benefit of me, I guess, in a way, so that my fear didn't engage. But
you had become instantly famous.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, yeah, I mean, you went from, all right, nobody knowing your
yes,
name.
I mean, yes,
everybody knowing your name, and that's, most people do not have that experience ever.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, it's indescribable. People who have gone through it, nothing can prepare you for it. Nothing, and everyone's just slightly, individual. And so, yeah, nothing can prepare you for the whole world looking at you so differently.
I mean, I don't know. Can't. I mean, it can't. But I never really thought about it before. But I feel like once I made the decision to go to Los Angeles and pursue this, that I guess kind of like success was inevitable. And that's not even like egotistical, because it wasn't, I thought I was so good. It was more holistic.
It just wasn't a question.
It was just, This is I guess maybe that people talk about path or flow. It was yes. It was just yes. And I didn't have the understanding, or couldn't tell you why, or even if it didn't make sense. It was just yes. It was the thing to do. It made the most logical sense and felt right.
Understood. Absolutely understood.
Yeah.
All right. So now the movie gets released, and just in the moments pre-release, you have a 3-picture deal. This is the first, and you are assuming, Brandon, that your future, you are on a flight path to God knows where.
This is great. This is yes, please. This is my world. Yes, continue.
Yeah. I mean, and suddenly it just,
I got it all. It's like, well, this is amazing.
Yeah, and suddenly something changes, something that you have no control over. It's out of your hands. You've done everything you possibly can. People in suits are making decisions that are changing your destiny, motherfuckers. Join us for part 2 on the next How Not to Make a Movie podcast. The How Not to Make a Movie podcast is executive produced by me, Alan Katz, by Gil Adler, and by Jason Stein. Our artwork was done by the amazing Jody Webster, and Jason, Jody, along with Mando, are all the hosts of the fun and informative Dads from the Crypt podcast. Follow them for what my old pal the Crypt Keeper would have called terrific crypt content.